It started like any other Friday morning. Sunlight spilling through the kitchen window, the smell of pancakes and syrup drifting through the house, and my two kids, Ethan and Lily, giggling as they argued over who'd get the bigger pancake. For once, life felt calm. I was halfway through packing their lunchboxes when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my sister, Ava. I smiled instinctively. She was usually dramatic, but we'd always managed to keep things civil. I wiped my hands and opened the message, expecting to see something about her daughter's upcoming birthday party that weekend. Instead, what I saw made my stomach twist. "Hey, just wanted to let you know we're keeping the party small this year. It's mostly for the school crowd. I don't think it'd be a good idea for Ethan and Lily to come. No hard feelings, but they can be a bit of a bad influence around younger kids." I stared at the screen, my breath catching. For a second, I thought I'd misread it. But no, those words were right there, glaring back at me. Bad influence. Lily was still humming to herself at the table, her little hands sticky with syrup. Ethan was building a tower of strawberries on his plate, completely unaware of the knife Ava had just twisted in me. I could have ignored it, pretended I didn't care. But my heart was pounding too hard. I typed back quickly, "What do you mean by bad influence?" The reply came fast. "You know how Ethan can be. He gets too rough when they play. And Lily, she's outspoken. I just don't want any drama at the party. It's nothing personal. Nothing personal." The phrase hit harder than the insult itself. I locked my phone, forcing a smile when Lily looked up and asked, "Mommy, is Aunt Ava coming today?" "Not today, sweetheart," I said softly. "She's busy getting ready for the party." Her eyes lit up. "Oh, can we get a present for Emma's birthday today?" The question pierced straight through me. "Maybe later," I managed, turning away so she wouldn't see my expression. That evening, after tucking them into bed, I sat alone on the couch, scrolling through old photos, our kids together at picnics, Christmas mornings, the beach trips. Ethan and Lily had always adored their cousin, Emma. The three of them were inseparable. But now, apparently, they were bad influences. The words echoed in my head as I read Ava's message again and again, searching for any hint of remorse. There was none. Just her usual tone, polished, superior, pretending she was doing me a favor by being honest. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was our family group chat. Mom, Dad, Ava, me. A new message from Ava. "Hey everyone! Don't forget Emma's birthday on Sunday at 3. Keeping it small and private this year? Small and private." My jaw clenched. Mom replied, "Can't wait, sweetie." Dad sent a thumbs up. No one asked why my kids weren't mentioned. No one asked if I was coming. The silence was worse than the words. That night I stood in Ethan's doorway, watching him sleep. His arm was draped over his favorite stuffed bear, his hair tousled. He was 7, loud, curious, sometimes a little too energetic but never mean. And Lily, my firecracker, she was 5 and had inherited my stubborn streak. Yes, she spoke her mind. But that wasn't bad influence. That was bravery. I walked to my room trying to calm the storm in my chest. Ava had always been like this, the polished sister, the one who needed everything perfect. Her daughter had piano lessons, ballet recitals, a wardrobe that looked like a magazine shoot. My kids wore mismatched socks and built cardboard forts in the backyard. Maybe to her that made them imperfect. Maybe to her that was bad influence, but to me, it was real. The next morning, I tried to carry on like nothing had happened. I made breakfast, packed lunches, kissed scraped knees. But every time I looked at my kids, guilt and anger tangled inside me. I didn't want them to know, didn't want them to feel unwanted. Still, kids notice more than we think. Ethan was quiet all day. Later, when I picked him up from school, he finally asked, "Mom, are we still going to Emma's birthday?" The question landed like a punch. I froze. "Why do you ask that, buddy?" "Because Aunt Ava told Emma not to tell me about it. But Jason at school said his mom's going." He was trying to sound brave, but I saw the hurt in his eyes. My throat tightened. I'm sorry, sweetheart, I whispered. We're not going this time. He nodded, turning his face to the window. I could see his reflection, jaw trembling, trying not to cry. That night, when the kids were asleep, I sat by the kitchen table in silence. The lights were dim, the hum of the fridge the only sound in the house. I scrolled through the group chat again. Ava was posting pictures of the party decor. Pink balloons, a glittery cake, little goodie bags lined up on her counter. Her world was shiny and spotless. Mine was messy but full of love. And somehow that made her feel superior. I didn't reply, didn't say a word. But something inside me shifted. The pain turned sharp, then steady. If she thought she could humiliate my children and get away with it, she was wrong. I wasn't going to fight her with anger. I was going to fight her with something she couldn't stand: grace, strength, and success. As the clock struck midnight, I whispered into the quiet, "If she wants distance, she'll get it." And that's how it began, the day my sister decided my kids weren't good enough. And the day I decided she'd regret ever thinking that. The next morning, the air in the house felt heavier, as if the walls themselves knew what had happened. I poured myself a cup of coffee and stared blankly at the steam rising from it, my phone sitting face down on the counter. I didn't want to look at it, but I knew I'd have to. By 9 a.m., I couldn't hold it in anymore. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my messages, hovering over Ava's name. My thumb hesitated. I wasn't the type to start drama, but I couldn't just let this slide. I pressed call. It rang once, twice. Then her bright, cheerful voice came through. "Hey, everything okay?" she asked, as if she hadn't just excluded my children from her daughter's life. "Ava," I said, keeping my tone even. "I read your message again last night. I just want to understand, what exactly do you mean by my kids being a bad influence?" There was a pause. I could hear her sigh softly, the kind of sigh that said, "I'm being patient with you." "Oh, come on," she replied. "Don't take it personally. You know, Ethan can get too rowdy. And Lily, well, she told Emma that Santa wasn't real last year, remember? Emma cried for 2 days. I gripped the phone tighter. She was 4, Ava. She didn't mean to upset her." "I know," she said quickly, in that sing-song voice that always made her sound like she was above the situation. "It's just, I want to avoid any tension. You know how my husband is about these things. He likes structure. Structure." That was her word for control. I felt my throat tighten, but I kept my voice calm. "You didn't even talk to me first. You just decided my kids weren't good enough to be around yours." "That's not fair," she said. "I didn't say not good enough. I said, a bad influence," I interrupted. The line went quiet. She finally said, "You're overreacting." "It's just a kid's party," I almost laughed. A kid's party. That was all she thought this was. Just another event where she could play the perfect mom, and I could sit quietly in the corner, pretending not to notice how she subtly put me down. "Right," I said finally, my voice colder now. "Just a kid's party." "Exactly," she replied, relieved to end the tension. "So let's not make this bigger than it is, okay? Love you." She hung up before I could answer. That day, the group chat kept buzzing. Ava sent pictures of the decorations, the dessert table, the personalized party favors with Emma's name printed in gold. Everyone gushed over them. Mom, Dad, even Aunt Lucy with her endless emojis. "So elegant. You always do things so tastefully, Ava. Emma's going to have such a magical day." And me? Nothing. No one even mentioned my name. It was as if I didn't exist. At one point, Mom sent a voice note, cheerful and oblivious. "Sweetheart, are you bringing something to the party? Maybe those cupcakes the kids love?" I stared at the screen. She didn't even know Ava had uninvited us. So I typed, slowly and clearly, "Mom, we're not going." "Ava said it's a private party." A few seconds passed. Then a message popped up. "Oh, I see. Well, maybe next time." That was it. No question, no defense, no shock, just quiet acceptance. My jaw trembled as I locked my phone. The world felt smaller, colder. I thought about every family dinner where Ava bragged about her new car, her promotions, her perfect marriage. And every time I'd smiled, nodded, and said I was proud of her, because she was my sister. But now I realized something painful. I'd always been the one trying to keep the peace. And she'd always been the one testing how far she could hurt me before I'd break. That evening, I sat on the couch with a cup of tea, scrolling through old photos. Christmas mornings where the kids tore open presents together, birthday candles glowing on both our tables, my parents smiling, her laughing beside me. Somewhere along the way, I'd missed the shift, the quiet change in her tone, the way she looked at my family like we were the messy ones, the less polished ones. It hit me suddenly that maybe this had nothing to do with Ethan or Lily. Maybe it was about me. Maybe my happiness, even when simple, had always threatened her. Later that night, I went to check on the kids. Ethan was drawing in his notebook, tongue poking out in concentration. "What are you making, buddy?" I asked. "It's a card," he said. "For Emma. I'm going to give it to her at school next week." He turned it around. A bright, messy drawing of all three cousins holding hands under a rainbow. My heart twisted. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," I whispered. "Do you think she'll like it?" I nodded. "I think she'll love it." But I knew Ava would never let that card reach Emma. When I left the room, I leaned against the hallway wall, fighting back tears. A part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to call Ava back and tell her how cruel she was. But beneath the anger, something else began to form, a quiet, deliberate calm. If my sister wanted to build walls, fine. I wouldn't beg to be let in. I would build something stronger, something that didn't need her approval. I walked back to the kitchen, opened my laptop, and began searching for something I'd been thinking about for a while. A way to give my kids joy, purpose, and belonging without anyone's permission. As the glow of the screen lit my face, I knew one thing for certain. Ava could have her perfect parties and picture-perfect life. I was done playing by her rules. The morning of the party arrived with an eerie stillness. No balloons in our house, no laughter, no rush to get dressed. Just the sound of spoons clinking against cereal bowls and the occasional sigh from Ethan. Lily sat across from him, her little face buried in her hands. "Mommy," she said softly, "can we still give Emma her present after her party?" I froze, milk dripping from the spoon I'd been holding. I had hidden the wrapped gift behind the couch the night before, a puzzle set they had picked out weeks ago. They'd been so proud of it. But now, the sight of that shiny pink wrapping paper just made my heart ache. "Maybe another day." "Sweetheart," I whispered. She nodded slowly, trying to understand something far too cruel for a 5-year-old. By noon, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Family photos, videos, and group messages filled my notifications. Ava's house was glowing with gold and pink streamers. Kids running around in matching dresses. The table full of cupcakes shaped like tiny crowns. Even through the screen, her world looked perfect. And mine. "Mom, look," Ethan said quietly. He was holding my phone, showing me a picture from Aunt Lucy's Facebook feed. Ava and Emma posing beside the cake, surrounded by relatives. "That's everyone," he said softly. "Even Grandma and Grandpa." I took the phone from him, my throat tightening. "Yeah, everyone," I murmured. "Everyone except us." He didn't say anything else, just locked the phone and handed it back, then went to his room. When I followed him a few minutes later, I found him sitting on the bed, tearing up a crayon drawing he'd made earlier that week. The same one with the rainbow and the 3 cousins holding hands. I knelt beside him. "Hey," I said gently, gathering the torn pieces. "Why are you doing that?" He shrugged, looking away. "It doesn't matter. She doesn't want to play with us anymore. Those words, 'she doesn't want to play with us anymore,' hit me harder than any insult Ava had thrown. Because that's what rejection feels like to a child. Abandonment without explanation. I hugged him, pressing my cheek against his messy hair. "You know what, Ethan? Sometimes people make mistakes, but you, You and Lily, you're the kindest kids I know. Don't ever forget that, his voice cracked. Then why doesn't Aunt Ava think so? I didn't have an answer that would make sense to him. Because how could I explain that jealousy and pride sometimes twist people into something unrecognizable? So instead, I just held him tighter. That evening, the house felt too quiet. I couldn't bring myself to cook, so I made sandwiches. We ate in front of the TV, pretending to watch a cartoon none of us were really following. Every now and then, my phone lit up with new pictures from the party. A constant reminder of the family we were no longer truly part of. When Lily finally fell asleep on the couch, Ethan helped me clear the plates. He was quieter than usual, more grown up somehow, the kind of silence that comes after disappointment. As I wiped down the counter, my eyes fell on the drawing he'd torn up earlier. I'd taped it back together, the rainbow now crinkled but still bright. It sat on the edge of the counter like a small, fragile piece of hope refusing to die. And that's when something inside me shifted. I was tired, not just of Ava's arrogance, but of feeling powerless. She wanted to humiliate me, to make my children feel smaller, to prove her family was better. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. I might not have her perfect parties, her manicured lawn, or her fancy circle of friends, but I had something she'd never understand: resilience and love. Real love. Later that night, after putting the kids to bed, I went into my room and opened my laptop. I searched for local community events, anything that could bring kids together. That's when I stumbled upon a small online post from a local shelter, seeking volunteers to organize a Children's Day for underprivileged families. Games, food, small gifts. Donations appreciated. I clicked the link. The idea sparked something deep in me, a thought that grew brighter by the second. What if I turned this pain into something bigger? What if, instead of fighting my sister, I created something that would make her see who the real bad influence was? I imagined Ethan and Lily surrounded by other kids, laughing, running, playing freely. No judgment, no exclusion. Just joy, a different kind of party, the kind that mattered. The next day, I made a few calls. I spoke to the shelter coordinator, to a local bakery owner I knew, and to my boss, who'd once mentioned a corporate sponsorship program for community events. Within a few hours, I had volunteers, donations, and a plan forming. Ava's party might have been about glitter and perfection, but mine would be about kindness and belonging. And the best part? My kids would be the heart of it. That night, as I tucked Ethan in, I whispered, "Hey, buddy, how about we throw a little party of our own soon?" His sleepy eyes brightened. "Really?" "Really," I said with a smile. "But this one won't just be for us. It'll be for lots of kids who need some fun." He grinned, already half asleep. "Can we make it colorful?" "More colorful than anything your Aunt Ava could ever imagine," I said softly. And as I turned off the light, I looked around our small, imperfect home, toys scattered, dishes still in the sink, and felt something I hadn't in days. Peace. Because I knew this story wasn't going to end with bitterness. It was going to end with grace. And maybe, just maybe, that was the kind of influence the world needed more of. 2 weeks had passed since Ava's picture-perfect party. 2 weeks of silence from her. 2 weeks of rebuilding myself from the quiet edges of that humiliation. But this time I wasn't wasting my energy on anger. I had something better. I was building something, and for once, it had nothing to do with her. Saturday morning arrived bright and crisp. Sunlight pouring into the living room where Ethan and Lily sat cross-legged on the carpet, surrounded by markers, paper, and glitter. I was drafting an email on my laptop to confirm the venue, the old community center near the library, while they brainstormed decorations for our big day. Ethan held up a sign he'd written in colorful, uneven letters. "Every kid deserves to laugh." I smiled so wide my cheeks hurt. "That's perfect, sweetheart." Lily was drawing cupcakes with smiling faces and sparkly hats. "Can we have a bounce house too, Mommy?" "If we can get a sponsor," I said, grinning. Maybe even two. What had started as a tiny idea, a way to heal my kids' hearts, had turned into something real. The local shelter's director, A kind woman named Maria had helped me secure permits and volunteers. A bakery donated cupcakes. A toy shop offered discount bundles. Even a local radio host had agreed to promote it as a celebration of kindness. And in every meeting, every late-night planning session, I could feel my heart growing lighter. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't reacting to Ava. I was rising above her. By midweek, word of the event had begun to spread, and with it, curiosity. People were calling it the Community Kindness Fair. Local parents were reaching out to volunteer. Donations poured in. It wasn't huge, but it was heartfelt. The kind of thing Ava would never understand, because you couldn't fake sincerity. Then came the text, Ava. Hey, I saw something about your kids' event on Facebook. You're organizing that? Just reading the quotation marks around kids' event made me laugh. It was so typically her, minimizing everything that wasn't hers. Yes, I replied simply. It's next weekend. Seconds later, her reply appeared. That's nice. Didn't know you were into that kind of thing. That kind of thing. I could almost hear her saying it with that little smirk. So I typed back, yeah? Turns out helping kids feel included is kind of my thing. Then I locked my phone and got back to work. The week before the fair, our living room turned into a whirlwind of color and noise. Streamers, balloons, donation boxes, everywhere. Ethan was in charge of the sign-in table. Lily was cupcake captain. Every night we worked late into the evening, laughing and painting. On Friday night, as I tucked them into bed, Ethan asked, "Do you think Aunt Ava will come?" I hesitated. "I don't know, honey." "Maybe she'll be proud of us," he said, yawning. "Maybe," I whispered. "But even if she's not, I am," he smiled sleepily. "You're better than her parties." "Mom." That made me laugh. A quiet, broken laugh. But a real one. The day of the fair arrived like a sunrise after a storm. The community center's yard was alive with color, kids chasing balloons, laughter echoing through the crisp air, tables stacked with cupcakes and board games. A local band played cheerful music while volunteers handed out goodie bags. It wasn't fancy, but it was beautiful. I stood near the entrance, watching Ethan help a little boy fix a kite while Lily twirled around in a tutu, handing out stickers that said, "You're awesome." Parents kept thanking me, telling me how refreshing it was to see something real, something not just for show. And that's when I saw her. Ava. She arrived in her usual fashion, perfectly dressed, sunglasses perched on her head, Emma trailing behind her in a pastel dress. For a moment, our eyes met, and I saw it, that flicker of disbelief. She hadn't expected this many people, or this much joy. "Wow," she said, approaching with a careful smile. "This is bigger than I thought." "It's been a community effort," I replied, matching her polite tone. "We wanted every kid to feel special." "Well," she said, glancing around, "it's very nice. That word again. The word people use when they're dying to say something else." Emma tugged at her hand. "Mommy, can I go play with Lily?" Ava hesitated, her eyes darting to me. I smiled. "Of course she can." And just like that, the girls ran off, giggling together as if nothing had ever come between them. Watching them, something inside me eased. Kids don't hold grudges the way adults do. They forgive without needing an apology. Ava, though, looked unsettled, like she'd just realized her control didn't reach this far. As the day went on, a local news crew arrived to film a short segment for the community channel. They interviewed a few volunteers and then approached me. "Can you tell us what inspired this event?" the reporter asked. I smiled, holding the mic gently. It started with a simple idea, that no child should ever feel left out. Sometimes kindness is the best way to teach others what really matters. The reporter smiled, clearly moved. "That's beautiful." I thanked her and turned back toward the crowd, but my eyes caught Ava's expression. For the first time, her polished mask cracked. She looked small, uncertain, maybe even ashamed. Later, as the sun dipped low and the fair wound down, I sat on a bench watching the last of the kids run through bubbles and confetti. Ava approached quietly, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. You really did all this. With a lot of help, I said. People are good when you give them a reason to be. She nodded, glancing at Ethan helping clean up. You've raised them well, I smiled faintly. They've raised me too. For a moment we stood in silence. The air between us felt different. Not warm yet, but no longer cold. And for the first time, I didn't need her approval. I didn't need her to admit she was wrong. The truth was already in front of us, in the laughter, the joy, the children running free. That was enough. As I drove home with the kids, the backseat full of balloons and leftover cupcakes, Ethan leaned forward and said, Mom, today was the best day ever. Yeah, Lily added. Even better than Emma's party. I laughed, tears stinging my eyes. You think so? Totally, they shouted in unison, and as I looked at them in the rearview mirror, their faces lit by the soft glow of the evening, I realized I had done more than prove a point. I had taught them that dignity doesn't shout. It shines. The next week, the story of the Community Kindness Fair began to ripple far beyond our little town. It started small. A few photos shared by the local news channel, then reposted by a parenting blog with the headline, Mom Turns Rejection into a Celebration of Kindness. By Monday morning, the post had thousands of shares. People loved it, not just the event, but the story behind it. Though I had never mentioned names or details, somehow everyone understood what it was really about, and so did Ava. She called me that afternoon. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Hey, she said, her voice tight. So, you're like famous now? I laughed lightly, hardly. It's just a nice article. Right, she replied. But they made it sound so emotional, like a mom standing up for her kids after being excluded. It kind of implies something, doesn't it? I stayed silent, letting her discomfort hang in the air. Anyway, she continued, forcing a laugh, it's good publicity for the town. I just hope no one thinks that you banned your niece and nephew from a birthday party? I finished for her, my tone calm but cutting. The silence that followed was heavy. I never banned anyone, she snapped finally. You're twisting things. I didn't twist anything, Ava, I said quietly. I didn't even mention you, but people know, she said. They're talking about it at Mom's church group. Everyone's saying I was cruel. I leaned back in my chair, a strange calm washing over me. If the shoe fits, her sharp inhale came through the line, but I didn't let her finish. I didn't do any of this to embarrass you, I said firmly. I did it to teach my kids that kindness wins, even when people are unkind to them. Amanda, you're making me look like a monster, she hissed. No, I replied. You did that all by yourself. Then I hung up. By Thursday, the article had reached a regional news site. Parents from neighboring towns reached out asking for tips on how to start similar events. Schools requested workshops about inclusion and empathy. And for the first time, people began calling me. Not to gossip. Not to criticize, but to collaborate, Ava, on the other hand, was unraveling. Mom mentioned in a strained phone call that Ava was a bit upset about how the story spread. Apparently, her friends were whispering that maybe she had gone too far. That maybe her perfect parenting wasn't so perfect after all. I didn't feel joy hearing that. Not exactly. But I won't lie, it felt like balance had finally found its way back. The following weekend, the shelter hosted a small appreciation lunch for the volunteers and donors who made the fair possible. The mayor attended, giving a short speech about compassion and leadership in our community. To my surprise, Ava showed up, uninvited. She was dressed immaculately, of course. But there was something different about her demeanor this time. Her posture wasn't as stiff, her voice not as sharp. When she approached me, I could sense every eye in the room subtly watching. Hi, she said, forcing a small smile. I just wanted to say congratulations. This event, it's impressive. Thank you, I said genuinely. It means a lot, she nodded, hesitating. You've done well for yourself. There was something in her tone, not quite admiration, not quite bitterness, but confusion. Like she couldn't decide whether to praise me or compete with me. Before I could respond, the journalist who'd covered the fair came over, smiling warmly. "Amanda, we're featuring you in next week's Mothers Who Make a Difference segment," she said brightly. "Could we take one quick photo?" "Of course," I replied. Ava's polite smile froze. She stepped back, pretending to check her phone. The flash went off, capturing the moment, me holding the award plaque, surrounded by volunteers, with Ava blurred slightly in the background. It was poetic. After the photos, I gave a short speech. Nothing fancy, just honest. I started this event because I wanted my children to know that being excluded doesn't mean you don't belong, I said. Sometimes rejection is just redirection, towards something greater, something you were meant to build on your own. As I spoke, I saw Ava's face soften, the faint glimmer of tears in her eyes. Maybe guilt, maybe realization. The audience clapped warmly, and I stepped down, feeling lighter than I had in years. But Ava couldn't help herself. She approached the podium after I left, forcing a laugh. "Well, I guess I should thank my sister," she said to the crowd. "If she hadn't organized this event, we wouldn't all be here today." It was meant to sound gracious, but the words came out brittle, the kind of tone that hides jealousy under fake cheer. The audience didn't laugh. They just nodded politely. The silence that followed was louder than any applause. Her smile faltered. For the first time, Ava looked exposed, the facade cracking right there under the fluorescent lights. And I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Because sometimes, silence is the loudest truth of all. When the event ended, Ava walked up to me in the parking lot. The wind had picked up, tugging at her hair. She looked smaller somehow. "I didn't mean for things to get this way," she said quietly. "I just wanted Emma to have a good party." "I know," I said softly. "But what you did hurt Ethan and Lily more than you realize," she nodded, her eyes glistening. "I see that now. I guess I was just—" She paused, struggling to find the word. "Insecure." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see the sister who always looked down on me. I saw the girl she used to be, the one who just wanted to be admired, to feel like she mattered. "We all are sometimes," I said. "But that doesn't give us the right to make others feel small." Her lip trembled. She opened her mouth as if to say something more, but then just nodded and walked away. That night, I tucked the kids into bed and scrolled through the new comments on the article. People from all over the country were writing things like, "This story restored my faith in people." "You turned pain into purpose." "Beautiful." I smiled. But my mind was on Ava. Because I knew this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about truth. About showing her, and maybe the world, that grace will always outshine pride. 2 months had passed since the Community Kindness Fair. The town had changed in small but meaningful ways. A new food drive had started at the local school. The shelter received steady donations every week. Even the park looked brighter, not because of anything material, but because people cared again. And in quiet moments, when I'd pass those flyers still pinned to the grocery store bulletin board, I'd smile. Because what began as an act of pain had grown into something far bigger than me, something healing. One crisp Saturday morning, I was helping Lily bake muffins for a neighborhood fundraiser when the doorbell rang. Ethan peeked out the window. "It's Aunt Ava," he said quietly. My heart skipped. We hadn't spoken since the awkward encounter at the volunteer luncheon. "Let her in," I said, wiping my hands on a towel. Ava stepped inside, dressed simply, no designer coat, no perfect makeup. Just jeans and a soft gray sweater. I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen her look so normal. "Hey," she said softly. "I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd stop by." Her voice was unsure, almost fragile. "Sure," I said, motioning toward the kitchen. "We're just baking. You can join if you want." She hesitated, then smiled faintly. I'd like that. For the first few minutes, the silence was thick, broken only by the sound of eggs cracking and spoons clinking against bowls. Then Lily, ever fearless, turned to her aunt. "Mom said you didn't want us at Emma's party," she said innocently. Ava froze. Her eyes flicked to me, searching for guidance. I gave her a small nod. She crouched down beside Lily. "You're right," she said gently. "I made a mistake, sweetheart. I thought I was protecting Emma, but really, I was just being mean. I'm sorry." Lily looked at her, frowning in thought. Then, with the simple mercy only children have, she said, "It's okay. Our party was way better anyway." Ava laughed, genuinely, freely. And for a moment it felt like we were sisters again. After the kids went to play, she turned to me. "I've been thinking about that day," she said. "The party, the phone call, the fair." I stayed quiet, letting her speak. "When I saw what you did, the kindness, the way people rallied behind you, it made me realize how much time I've wasted trying to look perfect." Her eyes glistened. "You've always been real, Amanda. You love fiercely, even when people don't deserve it. I envied that. I still do." Her words caught me off guard. Ava, the same sister who once called my life messy, was now admitting envy. "I wasn't trying to compete with you," I said softly. "I just didn't want my kids to grow up thinking they were less because of how others treated them." She nodded, wiping a tear. "You taught me something I should have learned long ago. That kindness isn't weakness. It's power." I reached across the counter and took her hand. "It's never too late to learn." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the gentle hum of the oven and the laughter of our children echoing from the backyard. Later that afternoon, Ava insisted we deliver the muffins together to the fundraiser at the shelter. As we walked in, heads turned. But this time, not out of gossip or curiosity. People smiled. They waved. Some even thanked both of us for what we'd started. One of the shelter workers whispered to me, "You two did something beautiful." Ava smiled shyly. "She did most of it," she said, nodding toward me. "No," I said. "We both did. In our own ways." And for the first time, it didn't feel like a lie. A week later, Mom invited the entire family over for dinner, including Ava's family and mine. It was awkward at first, but laughter came easier than expected. The kids played together like nothing had ever happened, and Emma kept telling Lily how she wanted to volunteer at the next fair. When dinner ended, Mom raised her glass and said, "To forgiveness, and to sisters who finally understand each other." Everyone laughed, but Ava and I just smiled knowingly. Because forgiveness wasn't about forgetting what happened. It was about choosing what came next. That night, after everyone left, I stood by the window, watching the moonlight spill across the backyard. Ethan and Lily were asleep upstairs, their faces peaceful. I thought about everything. The rejection, the anger, the revenge that turned into grace. In the beginning, I had wanted to crush my sister, to make her feel small the way she'd made my children feel. But along the way, something unexpected happened. I grew. I learned that the greatest revenge isn't humiliation, it's transformation. Ava learned it too, and as much as I'd hated what she did, part of me was grateful. Because without her cruelty, I never would have found the strength to create something good out of it. The next morning, I woke up to a message from Ava. "Signed up to volunteer at the shelter next week. Hope you'll be there too." I smiled. Maybe she wasn't perfect. Maybe neither of us were. But we were trying. And that was enough. The evening sun bled gold across the sky, painting the park in warm, forgiving light. Balloons swayed, gently from the gazebo, where the last of the Kindness Fair banners fluttered in the breeze. Children's laughter echoed faintly, soft, fading, like the closing notes of a long song. I stood near the edge of the playground, watching Ethan and Lily chase bubbles with Emma. Their giggles rose like music, pure and unbroken. Ava sat on a nearby bench, smiling. Not the practiced, picture-perfect smile I'd known all my life, but something real, something raw. She caught my gaze and mouthed, "Thank you." I nodded. No words were needed. The distance that once felt like an ocean between us had turned into a single step, one she had finally taken. The sun dipped lower, turning everything to amber. The trees, the faces, the air itself. I closed my eyes for a moment and let it sink in. How pain had become purpose, how bitterness had given way to grace. Maybe that was life's quiet truth, that love isn't born from perfection, but from the courage to forgive what once felt unforgivable. As the last light of day touched my face, I smiled, whispering to myself, "They said my kids were a bad influence. Turns out they were my greatest teachers." And with that, I walked toward the laughter, toward family, toward peace, toward everything that still remained beautifully, imperfectly ours.